the YouTube file.
Great.
Can everybody hear Kheri?
Yep.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Okay. So Kheri, I let you make an introduction. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Please.
So hi, everyone. My name is Kheri. I'm not really sure who else is there at the moment.
So we have Sean, Benedict, Raman E, and Yochuan Lee from your circle, and then there is
okay.
Devan Rajan and Nick Chong from my circle.
Okay, cool. So I'm Kheri. Hello, everyone. Well, I pretty much set up a group, a small group of entrepreneurs and like-minded people. So what we do is we constantly talk about the current situation of the country politically and also economically. And most of us, I think, in the group are either entrepreneurs or, I mean, we're just, like I said, like-minded people. So you know, personally, I'm also an entrepreneur. I've got a little bit of an economics background, not much. I did a degree in economics, but that's pretty much it. My interest in economics, I've sort of developed the love for it once again. Discovering a lot of different school of thoughts that's out there in the world. I've come to get involved in the Austrian school of thought, and you know the alternative, what they call it alternative, but you know I think it's pretty much the mainstream, to be honest. You know that school of thought. So yeah, so that's pretty much me in a nutshell. I don't really want to talk too much, so I'll just hand it over back to.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks, Kheri. Yeah, so because of the friendship that was developed with Kheri, and as some of you knows, I cooperate with ideas as a senior fellow. So I'm an economist, but I'm also involved in business. Within ideas, I just launched an educational initiative called Center for Market Education that has less the aim of doing policy advocacy and more the idea of explaining economics to non-economists from an alternative perspective. So I think that about economics there is a lot of confusion, and often economics it is perceived as an objective science, which is not. So the ideological background of the economist is very much important. So if, in example, you discuss the stimulus package now for the COVID pandemic in Malaysia with me, or you discuss it with someone from Kazana Research Institute, I believe that you are not getting the same kind of comments and the same kind of proposals. So this is very important. So the reason why I propose for Kheri is very much a follower of ideas activities, and we were thinking to launch a pilot experiment for his group within the Center for Market Education. So rather than having a formal lecture, a formal session, I propose to have something like a bar conversation. That's why we call it the CME Cafe. And the idea is to start from something related with reality, okay, like could be the stimulus package, and to eviscerate, to try to go back from that and to discover the economics which is implied in that. Okay, but we have to imagine this very much as a conversation. Okay. So, Kheri? Kheri, so do you want to start with the sorry? Kheri, do you want to start with the?
I'm so frustrated because I can't.
Okay. Do you want we start discussing with the Priatin package, or did you add another topic in mind?
Yeah, well, I was just looking at, actually, I was just looking, before coming online, actually, I was having an argument with somebody on Twitter.
Okay.
And they were talking about this a platform for, and this was going to be something which they would be working on with Grab. So I was just on the question, why is the state government wanting to get involved in such a project? And most importantly, why are they trying to get involved with one particular delivery service, which in this case is Grab? So, so I was just talking about that, and it seems to me that right now there is a hell of a lot of government intervention in we're seeing right now, especially with when the whole thing started with MCOs. So, so is this going to be a trend? I mean, is this going to be? Are we going to see a lot more government intervention coming in, especially in the markets and whatnot? So this is something which is quite interesting as well. So I'd like to start with that.
Okay.
I don't know what the idea is. What else does everything seem to fit necessarily, or is it something which is something that should be looking to and highlighted and get people aware? That should not be the case.
Okay. Okay. So I will mute you for a while so I can start the conversation. So what Kheri suggested is very important, because every kind of economic crisis open the door for more market intervention, or at least also if you look back at the past economic crisis, 2008, it was always the chance to claim that the market fails and therefore the government needs to step in to address market failures. And the provocation that I would like to launch to you on these are two. First of all, how do we define a market failure? Because in order to define a failure, you have to have a benchmark. So let's say you want to make a jump 1 meter long, and if you cannot make it, then you fail. So what are we asking to the market? Okay, this is the first point. And who is defining what is the benchmark? This is the other point. Because the market is not, doesn't have any value judgment. The market is an allocator of resources. But let's go more in a radical perspective. Even if we accept the concept of market failure, from a theoretical perspective, the government intervention designed to address that market failure can even be a biggest failure. And here, Kheri mentioned the Austrian School of Economics, and I would rely on the argument developed by two of the main economists of this school, Ludwig von Mises and Friedrich von Hayek, which try to address why government action is destined to fail even more than an eventual market failure. And between the 1920s and the 1940s, they developed two main arguments: the so-called calculation argument, and the other is the knowledge problem. These arguments are very important because they address the problem of government intervention from a technical standpoint rather than from a moral standpoint. Usually, pro-market people tend to address the problem of government intervention, saying, hey, listen, this is my freedom. I want to be free to exercise it as I want, and the government doesn't need to intervene in this, which is a very powerful argument. But with moral arguments, I think we will never be able to win the conversation. Instead, the critics that Hayek and Mises develop is more radical. And I will start with the knowledge problem. Raise your hand if you get lost, so I can eventually intervene and repeat, okay? The example that I like to make regarding the knowledge problem is the example of a pizzeria, being an Italian, of course, so pizza shop. In order to set up a pizza shop, you need two different kinds of knowledge. And this is the same for every kind of business, okay? You need technical knowledge, so you need to know how to make a pizza, okay? But you also need another kind of knowledge, which is called entrepreneurial knowledge. So one thing is to know how to make a pizza. Another thing is to know if a certain pizza with certain ingredients at a certain price can bring me a profit in a certain location. So you can understand that the uncertainty implied in this second type of knowledge is much higher than the first one. And as an entrepreneur, you do not necessarily need to know how to make a pizza. And most probably you will not be the one that is going to cook the pizza. Your technical knowledge, therefore, can be hired. You can hire people that has a better technical expertise for making the pizza, and you trust them with the technical aspect. But instead, the choices, what Hayek call the knowledge of the conditions of time and place. So the knowledge about where to open a pizza, which kind of price to sell the pizza, which kind of marketing strategy, and etc., is 100% the entrepreneurial responsibility. Okay. Now, how is entrepreneurial knowledge acquired? That knowledge arises in the market, cannot be looked for outside of the market. Is because an entrepreneur, by definition, lives in the market, makes the experience of the market every day, that can make the guess about certain conditions of time and place. So that one is a good location. This one is an acceptable price for the customer to come here, and is a good price for me to make a profit. This kind of knowledge is not in the books. The knowledge of how to make a pizza can be found in a book, so is eventually available also for the government. Government can acquire the technical knowledge. However, the entrepreneurial knowledge is not in the books. In fact, when in the university you find entrepreneurship classes, I always laugh. You can't teach entrepreneurship. You need to be in the market. It's something that you smell in the market and you develop in the market. You can't learn it on a textbook. Okay. So this kind of knowledge arises in the market, and therefore the government cannot acquire it. And by nature, a knowledge that arises in the market is not stable, is always uncertain, incomplete, and ever changing. Okay, So the day after you meet another person, you discover more the taste is about this new person. So that knowledge is keep on evolving. So in the moment in which eventually the government grasps that knowledge and implement a plan, the knowledge already changed. And because the governments operate outside of the market, can't be updated with this knowledge, which by the way is also dispersed in individual minds. So entrepreneurs need to make choices that are based on a knowledge that is dispersed in individual minds. How is this knowledge conveyed to the entrepreneur? By choices and by prices. Prices are the biggest vehicle of information transmission. If a certain phone on the market at 3,000 ringgit gives a profit to the producer of that phone and to the shop dealer, okay, to the dealer of that phone, means that that price is correct, in the sense that there are enough buyers in order to grant to all the supply chain to make a profit. Is perfect? We don't know. How do we know what is the perfect price? But as far as that product remains in the market, it means that the price is correct for the market standards. And this is possible to know, and here we go to the calculation problem, because the costs that the entrepreneurs encounter and the proceeds, the revenues, are expressed in the same unit. The ringgit, the dollars, whatever. So prices, purchasing prices and selling prices are expressed in the same unit, and therefore you can make a comparison and see if you have a profit. But these prices emerge in the market. If an entrepreneurial project, a government project, is decided outside of the market, prices cannot be defined in a sound way. Therefore, the government will never be able to know if it's making a profit or not. So these are the two main arguments, I think, and strongest arguments against planning. Knowledge, impossibility to possess entrepreneurial knowledge, and impossibility to gather that knowledge through the price system, because prices are, like knowledge, arising in the market. And that's why government plan always fail in the history. And the greater is the extent of government action, the greater is the failure. Look at USSR, you look at Cuba, look at Venezuela, look at Cambodia, look at all the communist experiments, China, I think when the great leap forward of Mao. In a less socialist country like Malaysia or like Europe, things can go better because somehow the government needs to engage with the market. So there is a higher degree of interaction with the market. But those things could eventually made in a better way thanks to the market. We have an example. Yesterday there was the news on the New Straits Times. Malaysia has been struggling with the testing capacity on COVID-19 since the very beginning of the emergency. So the whole point of an eventual Korean strategy was stuck on the fact that Malaysia doesn't have testing capacity. Yesterday, a consortium of private labs came out with the news that they are finally able to provide a firepower of 5,000 tests per day. That's not the government. And even the government didn't ask them to do. They are exploiting profit opportunities. Profit is good. If there was not the emergency of COVID-19, these labs would never think to to develop testing capacity. Okay. Because there is no need, there is no demand. Now that there is demand, there is a signal of profit opportunities, and the entrepreneurial spirit goes there and exploit it. Not out of benevolence, but out of profit opportunities. And because of these profit opportunities, everybody will be better off. They can make a profit. We can get better strategy for fighting COVID-19.
No big deal. I don't want you to go into the area. Just I'm putting it on. I can listen and go. Forget it. Kai is already outside.
Kheri? Did you follow this?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Is any question on this?
Well, no, not from me. Basically, I pretty much agree with a lot of what you said. I think what we are facing here right now is a lot of misunderstanding of how markets operate. Especially coming in from the political side and institutions. It's quite frustrating to see all of this happening. Like you rightly pointed out, what's happening with test kits. We don't see a lot of private sector involvement, which is a shame because from what I gather just on Twitter alone, there are a lot of private players who, just ranging from small business, small startups, and going up to very big players. There seems to be a vacuum between what government wants to do and what the private sector is trying to get involved on. So it's frustrating to see.
But I think that the news that I mentioned is already an attempt of the market to step in. Of course, we are talking about a technological knowledge that is not easy to be built. Yes, so there are things, there are products that cannot be developed overnight. But I think that this new testing capacity emerged in a relatively fast time, and this is the beauty of the market. And there is often an example, and I think that is the witnessing the marvel of the markets, is that we all get a breakfast in the morning without nobody really caring about it. If you eat eggs, the egg producer doesn't really care about your breakfast. He cares about his profit. The same goes for the logistic company that deliver the eggs, or the packaging company that produce the packaging to deliver the eggs.
So that's an interesting point as well, because this situation with COVID is not really a demand problem, is it? I mean, it's more like a sudden shock to the supply system.
Yeah, I think this is a very important point that is often missed also when we discuss the stimulus package. The economic crisis that we are experiencing in this moment is not a systemic crisis. In 1998, in 2008, we had crises that were coming from within the economic system. So there was something that went wrong, and we can discuss what, and it needed to be addressed. In this case, COVID-19 itself, which is an exogenous factor, affected directly only few industries like aviation or tourism. The rest of the economy was affected by the MCO. So the economic crisis is created by the MCO. And the stimulus package is not going to address a COVID-19 problem. It's going to address an MCO problem. So we have a policy that needs to address the problems created by another policy. Okay, so this is if we look at, and this policy also with the distinction on essential and non-essential service is creating a lot of disruptions, okay, which risk to be much more dramatic than the COVID-19 itself. Okay, because like it was reported a couple of weeks ago, if an egg producer which has a spike in demand of 300%, cannot deliver the eggs to the supermarket because it's not receiving the carton boxes because the packaging products are non-essential, the result will be a shortage of eggs. And shortage of eggs means higher prices, and higher prices will be damage in particular for the poor people. So we have an economic problem created by economic policies rather than by a structural problem of the economy. And this is the result of the fact that often policies are taken without a serious analysis of the trade-offs involved. Again, is COVID-19 in Malaysia so heavy like it is in Italy or in Spain? Not at all. We don't have 800 people dying per day. We have 1 or 2. So we should take an action which is proportionated to the real size of the phenomenon, and a solution that doesn't risk to create more problems than the problems that try to solve. Because we are risking, if the MCO is further extended, to experience severe disruptions in the supply chain. Supply chain is complex. The economy is complex. So it seems, Kheri, that you are able to enter now.
Sir, I think your mic is mute. Sir, I think your mic is mute.
Got it? Yeah, I can hear.
Now it's better.
Yeah, got it. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, can hear much.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, got it. Yeah.
Sorry. So because of this, because I was thinking, because of the hurry of making decisions, the government was more concerned about doing something rather than thinking what they were doing. And the Malaysian government also had to deal with this in a peculiar moment of the democracy. So the issue was there with a legitimacy. So they were pressured. But I think that we need to be very conscious that the size of the phenomenon here is very different with the size of the phenomenon in European countries. Any intervention on this? Any further point?
Actually, there is one here.
Yes.
It's actually regarding the COVID-19, because the government was promoting that if, let's say, we did not stop, we did not have the MCO at the beginning, it will end up being a lot of people that being affected as well. So the argument is that they would like to start as soon as possible. What is your view on that one?
Well, we should seriously look at the numbers. I think because Italy has been in a lockdown earlier, even if it was accused to be in delay. Actually, Italy is the first country that implemented a lockdown. Was the first country to block all the flights from China. So certain actions were taken quite early. And now, after a month of a lockdown which is very similar to the Malaysian one, so essential, non-essential, and etc. We don't really have the expected results. Still, the average number of people dying every day is 600. So we should have the braveness to say that policy didn't bring the expected results. So we should look in a different direction. If you crash your head against the wall and you find that it hurts, you should probably think to do something else. If you keep on crashing your head against the wall, it means that you are stupid. Okay.
Carmelo, hi.
Hi.
Thanks, guys. Great conversation. It is. I think we spoke about this earlier, Carmelo, offline.
Yes.
It is a hard nut to crack. There are rumors rife that they want to extend beyond April 14th. They want to go up till May and April. Rumors again rife because of the pending Hari Raya. How do you, that's no straight silver bullet. Of course, there are various ways of skinning the cat. Red zone. They are talking of green zones, allowing them. But how do you? I do agree. Having come from 40 years of manufacturing and supply chain, I do know people who are affected because of packaging. I do know of a colleague who has got a fantastic test kit, but because of the shutdown in India, he can't supply the test kit to around the world because the packaging is closed. So how do we manage between preventing numbers? And you just said they should raise the numbers. Malaysian numbers are low compared to Italy, but how do you loosen the MCO without allowing recurrence? Thanks.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Devan. Indeed, as you mentioned, we don't have a silver bullet. So to have a solution, I think that would solve all the problems, to have all the economy running and no cases, no debts. In this moment, as far as we don't have a vaccine, is not going to happen. So we should, again, evaluate the trade-offs. Surely increase the power of testing, but not with the hope that the number of cases will be reduced. This is important also to be understood, because the more we are going to do testing, the more we are discovering infected people who are asymptomatic. 80 to 90% of the cases are asymptomatic. So people get it and pass it to others and eventually survive without even having realized to get the virus. So we have to be very clear on this. So we should not simply monitor the number of infected people, but monitor the deaths, because that is the objective number. And on how many deaths are we dealing in Malaysia? 1, 2, 3. Something very, very manageable. And this is very important. It's not that if we increase the testing, we are going to increase the deaths, not at all, but we are going to increase the number of cases, but paradoxically, the mortality rate will drop down further. So my strategy would be gradual. Of course, there are certain limitations that can be, certain lines that can be drawn on essential and non-essential. We can all agree that probably a massage parlor is a non-essential business in this moment. Okay, so to find something that is self-evident, but there are more gray areas than black and white. Okay, So what I would do is, like you mentioned, zoning. Indeed, manufacturing is concentrated in certain areas. Manufacturing is, we have Glenmary, we have Shalam, we have other areas. So go for a great, keep at home whoever can be kept at home, like office works, admin works, schooling, extend these, but gradually go back to reopen manufacturing and logistics, which are essential for the survival of the economy. But before reopening certain business, be sure that all the people that go back to work are tested, so you can isolate the positive, and you introduce strict regulations on sanitation, health controls of the places. So you act on a different way. So you operate on the sanitary environment where the people work, rather than thinking about stimuli for the people that are losing the jobs. Keep the jobs, so you don't need the stimuli, but control the environment. So this would be my take, without the hope to go to 0 cases overnight. That is not going to happen, but at least avoiding people to be affected by a very severe economic crisis or supply chain disruption. So this would be my take, knowing that is not the golden solution. The golden solution would be the vaccine.
Yeah, Dr. Carmelo, I have a question.
Yes.
Yeah, so we are looking at this MCO and the potential of this MCO being extended, right?
Yes.
So the thing is, like, no, I can say like 0% of the business is like anticipating an MCO in their entire lifetime of doing business. I mean, nobody expects this to happen, right? So nobody is really prepared. Nobody has a cash reserve. Nobody actually prepared for this kind of emergency. So a lot of business are really affected. So what happened is, when the government implements the MCO, a lot of business cooperated because they just want to be like a responsible citizen. Like, they want to make sure that, you know, they really want to come back to work. But the problem is, it has been extended 14 days and there's a potential of it being extended again. But the government does not take into account that the business needs to survive, right? So they cannot like just shut down their business, and their livelihood depends on this. So is the government in any way responsible for the loss of income, for the loss of jobs, potential loss of jobs? I mean, people are not firing like everyone yet. Yeah, people still potentially still can come back to work. But if this goes on, nobody's going to have the buffer to like, yeah, I mean, go through this crisis. Like, yeah, like you said, the MCO is the problem that is created from the economic policies. So what is your take on this? Like, what is the government's role in, like, in a way, compensating for the loss of income and loss of,
yeah, there has been a lot of debate. In fact, if you look at the stimulus package, it tries to address that. The stimulus, they say, okay, you don't fire the people, I subsidize the wages. However, there are two main problems with this. First of all, is short term. You can't keep on subsidizing wages forever, because remember that resources, before being spent, need to be produced. So where the government is going to take the money? Government has two ways. The government is not a producer of wealth. The government is always an exploiter of wealth. Okay, and the way in which government gets resources are two: taxations and borrowing. Taxation, if companies are not producing income, there is no taxation. So, like I say, no money, no honey. As far as the companies are shut down and not producing a profit, tax is not going to produce any income. Second, borrowing. Borrowing means that this money sooner or later needs to be paid back. And we have countries like Italy, where the government debt, the debt is something like under 35% of the GDP. So how are these countries going to borrow even more? Is going to be an endless vicious circle. In fact, the situation in countries like Italy is now that the burden of the interests on the debt is higher than the debt itself, after decades of extreme borrowing. So this is the point: how is going to finance prolonged subsidies? So is naturally a short-term measure. So I think that makes much more sense to imagine an exit strategy, gradual with all the precautions of the case, carefully, but the only way to save the economy is an exit strategy from the MCO. And saving the economy is also saving lives. This is also a very important topic, I think. There has been a lot of dichotomy in the debate. Should we save the economy or should we save lives? I want to develop this other point of discussion with you. Are we sure that this is a dichotomy? What is the economy? The economy is not an it. An economy is made of she and he and them, us. Okay, so the economy is made of human beings. So threatening the economy is threatening human lives. It's not threatening the billionaires. It's threatening me, you, and all of us. And let's say if I'm fired, which I'm a manager in a corporation, I still can have a saving to survive for a while. But what happened to the people that earn less? And even with the subsidies are not 100%. So you can force people, you can force businesses to retain people, but you cannot force people not to shut down for good. So if businesses are closing down, there are no wages to be subsidized. So we have to be very careful. These are the trade-offs that really need to be taken into account. And as ideas, we are trying to bring these points of discussion not only to the public opinion, but also to the government. You have seen that the Selangor stimulus package has been more oriented toward financing testing and the purchasing of sanitizers. And I have spent quite a lot of time discussing this with the Selangor government. So there are people listening somehow, at least we try. So I'm quite positive that the MCO will be extended, but with in a more relaxed way. I understand that the government has a big concern. If we lose the grip now, we have the Ramadan coming with all the Buka Puasa things, and this is going to be a mess. And I tell this from the perspective of a religious person. I'm suffering a lot that I cannot go to church. Sunday for Christians is the most important day of our religious year, is Easter. And so we are deprived of the possibility for the first time in history to celebrate publicly Easter. So most probably Muslims are going to face the same kind of difficulty, and I understand this. But if we are going, again, trade-offs, in this moment, we should think, okay, let's get the economy back on track, but keep on forbidding big gatherings, in example. Okay, so avoid Buka Puasa. Buka Puasa will be within the family, at home, and that's all. Like we are going to watch the mass on YouTube, and we cannot have the Easter lunch and meeting our relatives. So, on a positive note, I think I give you also a terminological suggestion. Let's stop talking about social distancing. Let's call it physical distancing. We are physically distant, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we are socially distant. Let's try to change the tone. I think that also changing the tone of the conversation will help. So it doesn't mean that by being isolated, we are not caring of our relatives and our friends. So this is also a more philosophical suggestion, but one that I really care of. More questions?
Yeah, Dr. Carmelo, I think that's a really good point there, which is why we're here today. I think socially we can still interact, although it's behind the screen, but still it's a really good idea that we can get together this way. So I mean, yeah, I think I don't know how much longer we want to carry on with this, but I think it's been very, very, very fruitful. in fact, I hope moving forward they do relax a little bit on the business side or the business fabric side of things, because I think really we need to get the economy going again, because if it does not, I fear that we will fall into deeper depression. So that hopefully will take place. So yeah, I guess I think we all need to look out for each other and stay healthy.
Yeah, I think that we can so now all go for lunch, and I think that was a nice conversation. If you are okay, we can repeat in a couple of weeks, so see also how the situation goes, and we can put also more theory. We had a good moment of theory at the beginning, and then we went more into the applications. If you are okay, I will post this on my YouTube channel, so it will be there. I will invite you to subscribe my YouTube channel and to like the Center for Market Education page on Facebook, so you can also be being updated on our initiatives. You can follow me on Twitter as well. Yeah.
Sorry, Doctor, did you manage to speak a little bit about CME? Maybe I missed out.
Yeah, at the beginning I explained explain CME. Yes.
Cool.
Yeah, Devan, so sorry, you were saying something?
I said thanks a lot. That was a great, Gerard, I think that was very something nice to talk about and brainstorming. Great session. We put our thoughts together. I think all of us here come from different sectors of the economy, bringing our ideas to the table. I totally agree with you. Strategic approach. You really nailed it even on BFM this morning to say the economy is like a wheel. Sometimes they spurt the construction sector, but every country has come to a grinding halt. So they need to kickstart, as you said, using sanitizing, testing everyone. If not, the wheel will not move. And as you said, we'll keep subsidizing, and that'll as you rightly said, they need to allow the wheels to move, do testing. If not, all the companies are going to be really, going to fire people, and then that'll go into a greater backlash.
Yeah.
There is a hard trade-off between saving lives and saving the economy. No silver bullet. Thanks, Carmelo. Thanks, guys. That was a great session.
Thank you very much, everybody. Keep in touch.
Keep in touch.
See you soon, hopefully also physically.
Yeah. Take care.
Thank you.
Stay
Bye-bye.
safe.
Thank you.
Stay
Bye.
safe. Thanks, Doctor.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Carmelo.
Thank you.